Indonesia, the world's largest archipelago nation, home to the vast majority of marine corals that keep our oceans full with life. There's an abundance of wildlife throughout diverse ecosystem, and you're surrounded by these natural phenomena at every turn. As such, most people's idea of Indonesia includes plentiful oceans, idyllic beaches, fresh flowing rivers, and breathtaking landscapes. But in reality, a crisis has been building. Waste is dumped and burned. Formal disposal sites are overrun, resulting in an overwhelming accumulation throughout communities, within rivers, across beaches, and ultimately in our oceans. Because of this, plastic litter is damaging the environment, disrupting the vital ecosystem services that sustain Indonesian livelihoods, and impacting human health. But Indonesia is not alone in facing this challenge. Plastic pollution has transcended borders, evolving into a global crisis with far-reaching consequences. Recognized as a critical threat to our planet's delicate balance, the time has come to take action.
My name is Susan Jobling and I'm the Director and Principal Investigator of the PISCES Partnership and Programme. The UK Global Challenges Research Fund was created to maximise the impact of research and innovation on the lives of people living in developing countries. It was a £1.5 billion research fund, the biggest single boost to research and innovation funding that research councils have ever had, which was announced in 2015. And it aimed to drive research and innovation to solve global challenges. So importantly, the fund was created to connect arts and humanities with social and natural sciences and physical sciences to solve global challenges by funding interdisciplinary research. As a part of the Global Challenges Research Fund, a programme was launched to reduce the impacts of plastic waste on developing societies, and that funded 5 projects over a period of 4 years across 3 continents, Asia, Africa and South America. The programme focuses on Indonesia because when I first came here in 2017, I was absolutely captivated by the passion and the ambition of the national government and people in different sectors and even local communities to actually do something about the plastic waste and litter problem, which is very obvious and very visible all across the Indonesian landscape. So PISCES is actually both a partnership and a programme. First and foremost, a partnership. That's because the problem of plastic pollution cannot be solved by any one discipline, any one sector, or any one nation. So PISCES aims to break down silos between disciplines, cross boundaries between sectors with different needs and different interests, and to bring together nations to solve the global challenge of plastics in societies and leave a lasting legacy for our children and their children.
We know we've got a problem with marine litter, and particularly plastics, here in the UK, for example. But the causes, the underlying causes and the magnitude are very different to what we might see in a country like Indonesia. And so while I firmly believe that the challenge of plastics in the environment is something we can solve, there's certainly no one-size-fits-all solution, and even a solution that might work in Europe or North America possibly won't work if we're looking at it in Indonesia. So we need to understand the local context of how interventions might work in different contexts. Ultimately, of course, a program like PISCES needs to inform the Indonesian government as well as industry and society more broadly about how to address the problem. And I think the key thing, which we're realizing now in other projects as well as PISCES, is that although it's the oceans that tends to motivate people, and the accumulation of litter in the oceans and harm to marine life, actually this isn't a problem that originates in the ocean, it's a problem that originates on land. And it goes right back to the design stage when we're thinking, look at the products, they're not necessarily even designed with end of life in mind, and that's why some of them are escaping to the environment, and we've also got substantial quantities accumulating as waste. We're looking at waste management systems, then we're following it into rivers, we're looking at the effects of seasonal effects, of rainfall, monsoon condition, and we're following it right on out onto the beaches, because what we critically need to understand is the amount of the problem in Indonesia that is locally driven, because that's important, because then it means that local interventions can fix that problem, as opposed to the amount of material that's perhaps coming from further afield, from other countries, neighbouring countries around Indonesia, that obviously we can't fix by measures in Indonesia. So the data from those empirical counts in rivers, on beaches, around households, then feeds into work packages where we look at interventions, the way that we might change product design.
The evidence generated by the different strands of the PISCES project helps to understand the plastic value chain in Indonesia and identify interventions that can lead to the sustainable plastics economy. Basically, when we refer to the plastic value chain, we refer to the design and production of plastics, as well as their distribution, the storage, the use, the handling in the household or in commercial establishments, as well as the disposal and their management. The problem with finding solutions to the plastic pollution issue is that we are often looking into addressing parts of the system. There has never been before an approach that looks into the entire system as a whole in order to see the combination of different interventions that are needed to combat the plastic pollution issue. So what we do in PISCES really contributes to that. It's a novel approach. It's the first time that it's ever been done, combining different insights together and evidence from the modeling, the monitoring, the social and cultural analysis, the ecosystem analysis, into combining these and identifying the right interventions which can span across the environmental, economic, social, technical, and political and institutional levels.
There is a lot of litter in the environment. I think it's a combination of two causes. It's because the lack of solid waste management services, and also our inheritance behaviors. So based on our study, in two case studies in Banyuwangi and Jembrana, most waste is going to the water bodies. They throw it away to the open land, they throw it away into the drainage, and a lot of waste will be born. I will scale the plastic pollution crisis is an alarming crisis. As an academia, we will provide it evidence-based, scientific-based data for decision maker, so they will take action. For waste characterizations, we divided the sample into two categories. One, the sample from the household. The second one is a non-household, for example, from hospital, from a market, and from schools. For the household, we are going to the house, knock at the door, and then ask for their concern, whether they're willing to be part of the waste characterizations. Then we do the questionnaire to categorize the income levels of the household. So based on that questionnaire, we put the labels into a plastic bag. So each household has a unique label, so we know exactly where the waste is coming from. Next day, we collect the plastic bag, and then we weigh the plastic bag, recorded the weight, then we characterize into food waste, garden waste, metal, paper, textile, and so on. We use 23 plastic waste category to see the most prevalent waste generated at the household, and eventually will be a litter in the environment. Based on the overall data, we can generate waste generation per capita per day.
Back here in Leeds, we use the data collected from Amenda to understand the solid waste management system in Indonesia. So we've got two models that we apply as part of PISCES. The first is called the SPOT model, and it's a material flow analysis model. So the aim of this model is to try to map the flows of waste at a regency level in Indonesia. And we try to look at how much waste is being generated, how it is being managed or mismanaged, how much ends up getting into the environment, and then where it travels to when it's in the environment. The second model that we have is called the ISWA plastic pollution calculator. So this is very similar to the SPOT model in that it's a material flow analysis based model, but it looks in more detail at the plastic waste flows, looking at the formal and informal waste management sector and breaking down the plastic into different items to understand how the different properties, the sizes, the value of those items might impact how much is released into the environment and where it might travel to. We're supporting our models with additional experiments here at the University of Leeds. We're doing some field experiments where we are simulating the waste management conditions in Indonesia. For instance, we're creating informal dump sites and we're monitoring these using cameras and measuring the wind speed at the same time to try to understand the wind conditions that lead to plastic escaping into the environment. Unfortunately, there's very little empirical data that is available at present. By quantifying these aspects, we're able to calibrate our models and understand how plastic leaks into the environment. Understanding the scale of the problem in Indonesia is only the first step of the problem. Our models must be validated by litter characterization in the environment, and that's where our field teams come in.
So within these catchmentans or these villages, what we do is we want to understand where plastic is getting leaked into the environment. So to do that, we walk along main roads, we walk along smaller tracks and paths, and also along riverbanks. And what we thought was areas where people are dumping or discarding their waste or littering is probably in areas people can access. So we have 20 different survey sites across Indonesia at these catchmentan, this village level. We walk 300 metres along these different road paths. And on a couple of occasions during this survey, in each of these 6 different locations, we'll walk along a road type and we'll collect litter over about a 50-metre area. We'll then sort that litter into these 23 different plastic categories, as well as another category of plastic sachets, where we can start to look at the different functions of those sachets as well, because it's a real problem in Indonesia. So what we found from the data across 3 field seasons, if you like now, throughout the monsoon periods, is that plastic sachets are by far the most prevalent items, and within those sachets are these food snacks, these sort of daily portion size snacks that people will purchase throughout Indonesia. So where do we find the larger quantities of plastic in the environment? Well, it tends to be on these riverbanks from the data we've had so far. So this is really concerning because we see these large accumulations of plastic, and then just downstream, tens of meters away, people are going about their daily lives, whether that's washing clothes, that's washing themselves, washing the food, preparing that food, and then washing the pots and pans after they've eaten that food. So what we're also trying to do is understand how this plastic pollution is moving from source to sea. So these villages right down to the beaches. And on these beaches, we see that people again are going about their daily lives on these plastic-filled environments, whether that's washing their clothes, whether that's hanging those clothes out to dry. There's children playing on these beaches, really accustomed to plastic pollution.
Plastic pollution does not affect only one habitat. The natural world is linked to multiple habitats. Plastic affecting each of these ecosystems. We do a numerical simulation to understand of plastic waste dispersion in the ocean. Plastic dispersion means we trace the plastic movement or plastic transportation in the ocean. The drifter we release in the river. Why we release in the river? Because we want to know from the source and then get the ocean, how then they're moving in the ocean to which location. And we understand each of river will contributing of plastic for others area surrounding of Bali Strait like in Banyuwangi and Jembrana. We also release the river in the ocean directly, and particularly we do for validating of our numerical simulation. So we will find the plastic stranded in certain area in Bali and also in Banyuwangi from the source, from flow of river in Jembrana and Banyuwangi. We also can understand how it will be influenced the coastal marine habitat like a mangrove, coral reef, and also seagrasses.
There are a range of impacts from plastic pollution on the marine environment, the habitats and species, and ultimately to the benefits we get as people from that environment. It depends on the type of plastic and also the environment. So larger plastic items can actually smother habitats such as plants in mangroves and prevent them from growing effectively. In the PISCES project, we're measuring the detrimental impacts of plastic pollution on marine habitats and species, particularly by looking at existing evidence of those impacts and relating that to the habitats and species in Indonesia, and particularly in the study sites in PISCES itself. So this enables us to look at how sensitive those habitats are to different types of marine plastics and pollution from those types of marine plastics.
As a first approach to understand the impacts of plastic pollution, we try to use state-of-the-art methods to map the extent or distribution of key coastal habitats in Indonesia, such as mangroves like this. Our work focused on understanding the impacts of plastic pollution to marine environments through the lens of ecosystem services.
Ecosystem services are essentially the benefits that we as humans get from the natural environment, or to look at another way, the contribution of the natural environment to human life and human well-being. So basically what makes life possible and worth living.
So for example, healthy mangroves like this provides habitats for juvenile fish species that would eventually be beneficial for the local fishermen, for their food consumption, as well as for the fisheries industries. The plastic pollution can harm these vulnerable yet important ecosystems, hence reducing the benefit that these ecosystems could provide. Because whether we realize it or not, marine environment provides benefits not only for people who live near the coast, but also people who are living far away from the coast. So our work will help in communicating these impacts to wider stakeholders and policymakers, which hopefully will drive actions to protect the environment from plastic pollution.
So also we tried to see that how plastics in the environment leads to flooding, because that is also important to know. And we saw that actually there is a very high correlation between the plastics in the environment, unmanaged plastics, and the plastics that we see in the drains. And for that, what we also tried to see the causal relationship, and we found that if there is 100% increase in the plastics in the environment, then there will be 134% increase in the plastics in the drains, and that will damage, lead to damage of the public infrastructure. The cost of flood management, expenditure for managing the public infrastructure damage is at least 20 times more than what is needed for creating the public infrastructure in the human settlement level for plastic management. So we are saying that this cost of action for plastic management in the human settlement level is much cheaper than managing every year the damaged public infrastructure in terms of road, in terms of buildings, in terms of drainage system itself, then the clearance of the dam, and compensating people who are losing due to flooding.
So we know that there is a plastic pollution crisis in Indonesia, and within PISCES we've been able to identify key types of litter and which ones are highest priorities and the biggest concern. So the next question is, well, what behaviours contribute to that? And what are the drivers behind those behaviours? We need to consider human behaviour for multiple reasons. The main reason is because, unlike other socio-economic issues, plastic pollution is purely human related. We are the ones who have made plastic, we are the ones who use it, and ultimately we are the ones who dispose of it in a maybe less sustainable way. So we need to understand what are people's decisions and behaviours behind it. Therefore, how can we actually overcome that and look towards solutions, again, which involve human behaviour. So to be able to actually see what people do and why they do certain things, we are taking a very multi-method approach. So we are collecting both qualitative data, so very in-depth information, and as well as quantitative data, looking at a broader scale. So when it comes to the qualitative data, we have been conducting focus groups as well as interviews. So with the focus groups, we bring in a group of people from our particular case study sites, areas, and ask them in depth, what do they do? Why do they do it? And it's very kind of spontaneous. We ask very open questions, see what they volunteer, and allow them to expand. So we really get a real in-depth insight into those reasons and those behaviours. So to collect quantitative data, we do surveys, questionnaires, where people have to often rate on a very like a Likert number scale, so on a scale from 1 to 5, how strongly do you agree with certain statements, out of these options what do you do and why, and that type of stuff. So then after it's all done, we thank them for their time and then we move on to the next house.
Terima kasih.
So as part of our strand on people and behavioural change, we've generated a large number of insights. The next phase of the project is how can we use these understandings of what people think, feel and know to bring about sustained change. So our research into behavioural change and perceptions of plastic pollution has been really interesting. We've taken a very distinct approach, mobilising tools, concepts, theories from social psychology, as well as media and communications. This means that we're able to map at a quantitative level how often people are adopting certain practices and behaviours, but also at a qualitative level to dig into the social meaning of plastics in everyday life. To bring about sustained change, we need to ensure that we're communicating in the right ways with the right people. As part of the findings of this project, we're developing bespoke communication strategies aimed at policymakers, local community leaders, communities themselves, including women and girls living in coastal communities who can themselves become agents of change. It's important to consider each level of communication individually, because what might be packaged for governments might not work on the ground in terms of communities and what resonates with them. Getting this messaging right is going to be vital for the success of PISCES.
I was the head of the RT, which is the Rukun Tetangga in Bahasa Indonesia. This is basically housing, yeah? About 75 houses in the community. The head of the RT, basically they are dealing with administration in the locality. The RT basically endorsed to the local government, you know, like burglary, birth certificate, death certificate, anything that needed by the local community to have a formal certificate from the local government. But in community like Banyuwangi, Jembrana, I think informal leader is very important. And then in Indonesia, as mostly they are Muslim, so I think to get to know the imam, whatever they call it, I mean, try to work with these people is very, very important. We will think that plastic is a very big problem in terms of pollution. But when we come to the local people, especially in the rural area, I could say plastic are friends. They couldn't live without plastics. Plastic is very clean. Plastic is very cheap. And plastic is also probably very healthy. So they may have perception that plastic is not a pollution. So they just, you know, they receive 2 plastic bags, 5 plastic bags, even 10 plastic bags a day. That's not a sin at all. I mean, it's very, they need that one.
Welcome to the second PISCES co-design workshop.
We just had our second co-design workshop in Banyuwangi. It was a very good success. Co-design workshop is a co-creative session where multiple stakeholders like researchers, local experts, users come together to co-create, co-design a product, a service, or an experience. We have the approach of interdisciplinary, systemic, and cross-value chain approach. What does cross-value chain mean is that we are not interested in isolated solutions. We are looking for a integrated set of solutions that covers the entire plastic value chain. For example, reusable packaging systems, material level solutions, or waste management and collection solutions. We have just had the grand opening of the Living Lab, PISCES Living Lab today. The solutions will be tested in the PISCES Living Lab. We will use a method called solution enactment. Firstly, we will create the prototypes of these solutions. These are low fidelity prototypes. After that, we will create the scene of the solutions. For example, it can be a refill machine in a warung. So we will create the warung environment and put the prototypes in there, and then we will invite local people, local users. Local users will come and go through the user stage for each packaging, including purchasing, using, taking the packaging home, storing it. So after this, their experience through the
solution enactment scene, researchers will observe them and ask them detailed questions to learn more about the adoption barriers mainly, the advantages of using that packaging and the ways to improve the packaging to meet the needs of the users. After that, our action delivery partners can uptake these solutions and embed them into their commercial items.
So PISCES doesn't just consist of academics working in different disciplines. It also involves different sectors. In those sectors, we have action delivery partners. That's because my vision for PISCES was always to connect the research through to innovation and action, and to create a pipeline. So each action delivery partner was carefully chosen because they were doing really good work, for example, on introducing waste collection and waste management in particular areas in which we were working, or they were introducing product service systems, refillable, reusable solutions, or they had a big network of the different players involved in waste management across the entire country, or they were raising awareness of the problem, doing really good work in remote communities, for example.
So what we do is that we really focus on the systematic problem, and then we create solution, but the solution we make it as ventures so it can become independent on their own and the impact can be sustainable. And in Indonesia, we're really focusing on the plastic prevention. So this is our venture owner. This is the venture that works in the fast-moving consumer goods products or the everyday products that we use. So the idea is for this to be a reusable packaging as a service. So what we do is that we send out the empty packages to the producer, they fill it in, and then they give the product to us and for us to distribute it. So we have now 200 places of communities that actually become the reseller offline, but we also have the online channel for people can purchase it. And then for when people purchasing it, they can consume it until it runs out. When it's empty again, people can get it back for wherever they bought it the first time. If they bought it from their neighbors, they can return the packaging to their neighbors, or if it's online, they can just WhatsApp, and then we pick up the empty ones and then we give out the new ones. And then when it is collected, the empty ones collected, we clean them out in an industrial standard cleaning facility. And after that, after it dries out, we repeat the process again. It's filled again, sold again, and it's reusable packaging. In a way, what we really want to do is that we want to make the reuse solution become more inclusive. And this couple of years, what we're trying to also focus is to explore the possibility for reuse to be able in traditional channel, examples like traditional market, low-income communities, for the solutions to be affordable for everyone. So, I am excited for the possibility for this impact to scale more and more across the country and beyond.
Project STOP aims to reduce waste leakage into the environment by providing affordable, reliable, and also formal waste collection to the citizens. We also encourage the recycling, and also we are encouraging the community to participate in the waste collection systems. And by that, we are aiming to achieve better environment and also better health for the community. We collect waste from people's homes by providing tree cycles that coming to the household with the scheduled time and also scheduled days. All of the sorted inorganics and organics from the households are then picked up by our vehicles and drivers, and then to be sent out to the MRF or TPS3R, and then after that we separate the waste from the households. The site that we are now is the TPS3R Tembok Rejo in Muncar Municipality in Banyuwangi region, East Java. In the TPS3R, or the Material Recovery Facilities, or MRF, we receive, separate and also prepare waste that we receive from the household to be processed here, to be sent to the user and manufacturers, using the principle of reduce, reuse, and recycling.
Desa kami, Desa Tembok Rejo itu memiliki pelanggan sampah sejumlah 6.414 KK. Dengan kapasitas setiap hari sampah masuk di TPST kami itu 10-12 ton per hari. Ketika sampah masuk dari warga, masuk hangar, dari sini dilakukan proses pilahan melalui konveyor. Di kami memiliki 5 petugas memilah sampah, yang masing-masing itu punya 12 item. Dari titik 1 ke titik 2 itu udah beda jenis sampahnya. Nanti bisa dilihat di sana, dari titik 3 dan selanjutnya. Jadi di sini kita dari sampah pilahan itu menjadi sampah organik, anorganik ya. Di larva maggot itu kan sangat cepat sekali untuk mengurai sampah rumah tangga, khususnya sisa makanan, sisa sayur, buah dan segala macamnya. 10-12 ton ya. Yang bisa kami proses hanya 40%-nya. Besar sekali yang masuk ke TPA sebagai residu. Pertama karena sampahnya kotor, kedua karena sampah yang dihasilkan di Desa Tembok Rejo itu terutama itu pampers, sampah yang menghasilkan sampah. Penghasil sampah terbesar itu hanya pampers yang tidak bisa kami olah.
Many waste management systems around the globe fail due to various reasons. This includes insufficient waste management funding, inadequate waste management governance, and also a lack of technical training and capacity. Project STOP aims to address system failures together, instead of tackling only single gaps in the system. As of today, Project STOP has served 300,000 people. We have collected 40,000 tons of waste, and we have created 333 jobs. Our ambition is to provide waste management systems to 2 million people in Indonesia, with that collecting 230,000 tons of waste per year and creating over 1,000 jobs in the region. The momentum is now. We see a lot of attention on the issue of mismanaged waste in Indonesia. We truly believe that we can actually address the complex issue of waste in the environment by working in a collaborative approach. With Project STOP, we foster system change. We aim to create a blueprint that will be hopefully multiple times copied around the globe.
So my name is Sam Benchagib. I'm the co-founder of Sungai Watch, and 2.5 years ago with my brother Gary and my sister Kelly, we thought to ourselves, how can we have a direct impact on our rivers to stop plastics from going into the ocean? So you just clean up this river behind me. You know, this is completely covered in plastics. It's just an accumulation of waste stuck with organic material. It's not like it's all plastic, but it all combines together and almost creates an island. But this is the type of work we do at Sungai Watch. We're trying to find the most polluted places out there, the impossible missions we call them, and send our troops to clean it up because nobody else will. I think that's a big part of our work, but in order to stop this from happening, that's where our barriers come in. Throughout the years, as we saw our rivers get more and more polluted, our coastlines get trashed and our mangroves get covered in plastics, we thought, let's come up with a very simple solution to stop all this waste upstream in our rivers. You know, we've tested all types of barriers, but we came up with one type of barrier. We call it our trash barrier. We install it in a river, it catches the flowing debris, and then every day we send our teams, collect the trash, bring it back to our facilities, sort all of the trash into 30 different waste materials to be able to give it a second life. You know, looking at the mountain of trash here, it looks like, you know, it's probably close to 1 to 2 tons of plastics collected in 3 hours. And if we can place barriers in Indonesia's most polluted rivers and the world's most polluted rivers, you know, we can stop these places from becoming so polluted that they become an impossible mission. You know, this is disaster relief efforts, and we shouldn't be out here cleaning rivers every day. The dream at Sungai Watch is that, you know, we don't exist and we can move on to other things. We can take out our barriers because the rivers are now clean, but I think we still have a ways to go, and there's more work to be done. I think more rivers need to be cleaned before that dream is accomplished, but I think we're very excited to keep going and see what the future holds.
The objective of IWP is to support Indonesian National Action Plan to reduce the waste leaking to environment 70% and then to increase the recycling rate 30% by 2025. Then also to protect the World Heritage Site because we are working in Komodo National Park and in Labuan Bajo. We start on one island on 2021, but now we cover another 4 islands, so 5 in total. The strategy is pretty much unique. We call it a Komodo model because geographically it's very challenging because we are working in the islands. The main problem of this waste here is the lack of infrastructure and education because people have less awareness about the dangers of waste leaking to ocean, for example, or to the environment in general. The way we introduced the program in the islands was during the pandemic. So we call it circular economy. First, as an alternative solution of livelihood, and also we want to introduce the waste that has the value. By doing that, the practice that we do in the island is we ask them to separate the recycled waste and non-recycled one. After they make the separation in the household, and then when we come to the island weekly, and we will pay the waste right away after we scale them based on the amount that they provide. When the waste from the islands arrive in the harbor, we will transport them with our pickup truck to this processing center. And we have the ladies who are working 3 hours per day, 4 days a week, and do the separation process, like take out the seals, separate the cup, and then from there, the waste will go to the pressing machine. And the pressing machine is consists of, for the PET, it's 15 bags of PET pressed into one bale. So the weight will be around 40 to 50 kilograms per bale. And from here, after the bale, when it reach 10 tons minimum, we will ship them over to Surabaya, to the factory where they do the recycling process. The future of IWP is we are looking for to involve more people on citizen science to drive better policies, and also to expand to maybe up to 50 or 100 other places to apply this Komodo model, but it's gonna be really depend on the funding for that.
I think there is an opportunity for us to tackle plastic pollution problems in Indonesia.
I definitely do think that there's a chance to turn the tide on plastic pollution. I think so many people have been fighting this fight in Indonesia for so many years.
I really do think there's a chance to turn the tide on plastic pollution in Indonesia.
There is opportunity to change people's behavior in Indonesia.
I think we have a real opportunity to turn the tide of plastic pollution in Indonesia.
We are optimistic to turn back the plastic waste in the ocean through our evidence from PISCES project.
I really do think there is an opportunity to turn the tide on plastic pollution.
But you think about the benefits that come from plastics, and there are many. This isn't a story about banning plastics, it's about using them more responsibly. The benefits are really widespread. You know, you think of lightweight parts in cars and airplanes that could reduce carbon dioxide emissions. You think of all of the applications in hospitals and schools that can save lives and increase the well-being of populations, of individuals worldwide. Even the single-use packaging that's often picked on helps to extend the life of food and drink on the shelves at home and in the supermarket. And that reduces food wastage, which is another major environmental challenge. I would argue that all of those uses, all of those benefits could be achieved without this emission to the environment.
What we hope to see in the next few years is that there will be sufficient efforts to coordinate actions in tackling plastic pollution in Indonesia.
By working hand in hand with all of the stakeholders, including national, local government, private sectors, all organizations and community.
Having now worked here for over a year with local teams, seeing the passion they have for doing this research and creating change, as well as working with local stakeholders, whether that be small groups or NGOs implementing new solutions already across Indonesia, having spoken with different government officials as well and seeing their passion for trying to drive this change forward. I'm really positive about what the future may hold.
I think that the PISCES program can help to really change and the plastic value chain in Indonesia, transform it into a sustainable plastics economy. And in order to do that, we all need to work collaboratively. We need to bring together all stakeholders across the plastic value chain. We need to facilitate that interconnection so that whatever solutions are being implemented either at national level when talking about political interventions or at the local level when we are actually talking about specific solutions can deliver the right results. So the activities that we do in PISCES really contribute to that effort, and yes, I believe that we can change it.
I think there is a real opportunity to change the tide of the plastic pollution in Indonesia, and it starts here in what we are doing in PISCES. This research is really important because I do really love my countries. I do really love the environment. I do really love the sea, the water, the air, and everything. If we give the Mother Nature a big problem, like the plastic or the other pollution, I don't want to do that. I want to give the really good, like the legacies to my son, to my grandson, or to the other younger generation. I do really care about them. As Indonesian, Indonesia is really huge with people more than 270 million people. I don't want to give them the bad one. I just want to give them the paradise that we have now.
The aim of the PISCES programme is to co-develop a toolbox of methodologies and approaches that can be adapted to other situations that are contextually different. So they could be geographically different, culturally different, socially and economically different. So the idea is to grow and scale our program and replicate it in other parts of Indonesia and indeed in other parts of the world.